The day my brother signed my name on a federal document, he was smiling. I know, because I was watching through the glass panel of the conference room door, and I remember thinking, he actually believes this is going to work. I didn't move. I didn't knock. I just stood there with my coffee going cold in my hand, and I let him finish. That moment was 6 months in the making. But to understand why I let it happen, why I needed it to happen exactly that way, I have to take you back to the morning our father's lawyer called me at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday and said, "Your brother has filed a motion to have you removed as co-trustee of the Hargrove Family Trust." I sat up in bed and said, "I'm sorry, what?" "The motion was filed yesterday afternoon," Gerald Whitmore said. He had been our family's attorney for 22 years and he sounded genuinely uncomfortable. "I'm required to notify you. There will be a hearing in 30 days. I set the phone down on my comforter and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Outside my apartment window, Portland was doing what Portland does in November. Gray sky, steady rain, the kind of morning that makes everything feel a little more permanent than it should. My name is Nora Hargrove. I'm 31 years old. I'm a licensed forensic accountant, and I work as a contractor for the Department of Justice. I say that not to impress anyone, but because it matters to what comes next. My brother's name is Daniel. He is 35, and he has always been the one my parents trusted without question. The oldest. The one who gave the toasts at every family event. The one my mother called her rock. Growing up, I was the one who got good grades quietly while Daniel got loud applause for average ones. I was the one who paid for my own college while my parents co-signed Daniel's business loans. Twice. I never said anything about it. I told myself it was fine. I was independent. I didn't need their money. What I didn't know until my father died, until I was sitting in Gerald Whitmore's office 8 months ago listening to the reading of the will, was that my father had left something specifically for me. Not just a share of the estate. A trust, a separate protected trust worth $2.4 million, built quietly over 30 years from my father's real estate investments. Gerald told me my father had set it up 12 years ago, not long after I graduated college on my own, and had never told anyone about it. Not my mother, not Daniel, just me and Gerald. The note my father left inside the trust documents was 3 sentences long. I've memorized it. "You never asked me for anything, Nora. That's exactly why I wanted to make sure you had something. Don't let anyone take it from you." I read it twice in Gerald's office, and then I folded it and put it in my coat pocket, and I did not cry until I was in my car in the parking garage. Daniel found out about the trust 4 weeks later. I don't know exactly how. My best guess is that he pressured my mother until she let something slip, or he got into my father's old email account. What I know is that on a Sunday evening in October, he called me and the temperature of his voice had changed completely. "So Dad left you a separate account," he said. Not a question. "He left both of us things," I said carefully. $2.4 million, Nora. He let the number sit there. "And you weren't going to mention it. It's a trust, Daniel. It's not liquid. And it was private. We're family." He said it the way people say check-in chess. "Final, warning you. I know we are. The business needs capital. You know the situation." I did know the situation. Daniel had spent 3 years running our father's property management company into the ground. Not through malice exactly, but through the specific arrogance of someone who had always been handed the wheel without ever learning to drive. He'd over-leveraged 2 commercial properties, lost a major client, and was now sitting on about $800,000 in debt he couldn't service. He had come to my father for help twice in the last year of his life. My father had said no both times. "The trust isn't for the business," I said. "Dad would have wanted. Dad set up the trust specifically separate from the business." Gerald explained the structure. "It's protected." He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was smooth in a way that made my stomach tighten. "I just think we should talk about this as a family. That's all. Come to dinner next weekend. Mom wants to see you." I almost said yes, and that's the part that still gets me. How close I came. Because the thing about being the overlooked sibling is that you spend your whole life just wanting things to be normal, just wanting one dinner where no one needs anything from you. But I am a forensic accountant. I follow money for a living. And something about the smoothness in Daniel's voice made me open my laptop after we hung up and start making a list. 3 days later, I found the power of attorney. It had been filed with the county clerk's office, and it bore my signature. or something that looked like my signature, granting Daniel limited authority over my financial accounts in the event of incapacitation. The document was dated 2 weeks earlier. I had never signed it. I had not been incapacitated. I had been at work in a federal building with a badge and record that could prove exactly where I was every hour of that day. I sat with that document on my screen for a long time. Then I called the one person I trusted completely. Her name is Sylvia Okafor, and she is a senior investigator with the Oregon Department of Justice Financial Crimes Unit. We went to college together. She is meticulous and calm, and she once told me that the best thing about financial crime is that money always leaves a trail. Always. Send me everything, she said when I explained what I'd found. If I report this officially, I know. It moves at its own pace. But send me everything and let me look at it first. Unofficially. I sent her the power of attorney, the trust documents, Daniel's business filing records, and a timeline I'd built of every financial move connected to our family's estate over the past 8 months. Sylvia called me back in 2 days. There's more, she said. She had found 2 things. First, Daniel had already approached a private lender, a firm with a long record of predatory bridge loans, and used the anticipated liquidation of the Hargrove Trust as collateral. He had borrowed $300,000 against money that was not his and that he had no legal right to touch. Second, and this is the part that made my hands go cold, he had submitted a forged notarization on the power of attorney. The notary seal belonged to a retired paralegal who had no knowledge her credentials had been used. He's committed at least 3 felonies that I can see clearly, Sylvia said. Wire fraud, forgery, and using fraudulent documents to secure a loan is bank fraud. I asked her what she needed from me. She told me. And that's when I understood that I wasn't just going to report this and wait. I was going to give them exactly what they needed to make it airtight. I called Daniel back the next day and I said yes to dinner. My mother's name is Patricia. She lives in the house I grew up in Lake Oswego, a 40-minute drive from my apartment. She is 63 and she has a talent for not seeing things she doesn't want to see. I don't say that with cruelty. It's just accurate. She loved my father and she loves Daniel, and she has spent 40 years arranging her understanding of the world so that the people she loves most are also the people who are right. I have never fit neatly into that arrangement. When I pulled into the driveway that Saturday evening, she was already at the door. She hugged me and said I looked thin and asked if I was eating enough. And for about 30 seconds, it felt like every other time I'd come home. Normal. Safe. Then I went inside, and Daniel was standing by the kitchen island with a glass of red wine and a folder. The folder was the tell. People who want a normal family dinner don't bring folders. Glad you came, he said. His wife, Melissa, was setting the table in the dining room. She gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. They have been married for 6 years, and she has always been pleasant to me in the careful way of someone who has been told to be pleasant. We ate dinner first. My mother made the pot roast my father used to request every birthday, and I ate it and answered questions about my work and listened to Daniel talk about a property in Beaverton he was thinking of acquiring. And I kept my breathing steady. After dinner, my mother cleared the plates and Daniel opened the folder. I had Gerald draw up a modification to the trust structure, he said. He slid a document across the table toward me. It's a co-management agreement. Basically, it lets me act on trust decisions jointly with you, which makes things simpler for the estate administratively. I picked up the document. I read the first 2 paragraphs. What he was describing was not co-management. What he was describing was a transfer of decision-making authority that would allow him to authorize distributions without my signature, which, given the power of attorney he had already forged, would give him complete unilateral control of $2.4 million. Gerald drew this up, I said. He reviewed it. I made a note of that phrasing. Reviewed, not drafted, not recommended. I'd need to have my own attorney look at it, I said. Daniel's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. Of course, take your time. My mother came back from the kitchen and sat down. She looked at the document and then at me and then at Daniel, and she did the thing she has always done. She deferred to the shape of the room, which at that moment was Daniel's shape. It just makes things easier, Nora, she said. For all of us. I looked at her. I thought about my father's note. Don't let anyone take it from you. I understand, I said. I kept my voice warm. Let me just take a photo of this to send to my attorney tonight. I took out my phone. What I actually did was activate the recording application I had opened before I walked into the house. Oregon is a two-party consent state for audio, but the DOJ consultation I'd had with Sylvia had confirmed that in the context of an ongoing financial fraud investigation, documented evidence collected by a victim has a specific legal standing. Everything on that recording was going to be admissible. There's something else, Daniel said. He slid a second document across the table. This one had my signature on it already. I recognized it immediately. It was a distribution authorization form for the trust, requesting a wire transfer of $2.4 million to an account I did not recognize. The signature looked like mine. It was not mine. "What is this?" I said. I kept my voice level. I needed him to explain it on the recording. "It's the authorization for the initial distribution. You signed it last week. Gerald said you came by the office. I didn't go to Gerald's office last week. Nora, Daniel." I set the paper down flat on the table. I was in a federal building last week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. There are badge records. There is security footage. I did not sign this. The room went very quiet. My mother said, "Nora, I'm sure there's just a miscommunication." "There's no miscommunication." I looked at Daniel. "You forged my signature." He stood up. Not fast, slow, deliberate, the way he does when he wants to take up space. "I've been trying to protect this family's finances for 3 years. While you were off doing your federal work and building your little independent life, I've been here, dealing with Dad's mess, dealing with the debt, dealing with everything you never had to deal with because you were never around. That's not what happened, and you know it. I needed the capital, Nora. The business is going to collapse. Mom could lose the house." I looked at my mother then. She was crying, quietly, the way she cries. Not dramatic, just a slow leak, like she's trying to do it without anyone noticing. And I felt it, the pull. The old deep pull to smooth things over, to find a way to make everyone okay, to absorb the damage so the family could pretend it was fine. I had been absorbing damage since I was 9 years old. It is a hard habit to break even when you know exactly what it is. I took a breath. "I know about the private lender," I said. Daniel went still. "I know about the $300,000 you borrowed against the trust. I know about the notary whose credentials you used without her knowledge. I know about the power of attorney you filed 6 weeks ago with my forged signature." I paused. "I've known for 3 weeks. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a forensic accountant, Daniel. I do this for the Department of Justice. I've been building this file for 22 days. I reached into my bag and put a single sheet of paper on the table, a summary document Sylvia had helped me prepare. "This is a list of the statutes you violated: wire fraud, forgery, bank fraud, fraudulent use of notarial credentials. There are federal components, which means this doesn't stay at the state level." He looked at the paper. He didn't pick it up. "Mom," he started. "Don't," I said. Not loud, just firm. "Don't put this on her." My mother had stopped crying. She was looking at the paper on the table, and her face had gone very still in a way I had never quite seen before. I think some part of her had already known. I think that's why she was here, at this dinner, on this particular night. Not because Daniel had told her everything, but because she had let herself be present for something she didn't want to examine too closely, and now it was on the table, literally, and there was nothing left to not see. "You came here wearing a wire," Daniel said. "I came here with a recording application on my phone. There's a legal distinction, and yes, I know it. You set me up. You set yourself up. I just made sure there was documentation." He moved toward me then, not threateningly exactly, but he got to his feet and came around the table, and his voice dropped into something low and tight. "You are going to destroy this family over money. Over my money. That Dad left to me, that you forged documents to take. Yes. Where's your loyalty?" I looked at him for a long moment. He is 4 years older than me, and for most of my life, I watched people hand him things he hadn't earned and apologize when he dropped them. I used to feel something about that. Grief, maybe. Or a low-grade anger I could never quite locate. Standing there in my mother's dining room, I realized I didn't feel much of anything anymore. Just clear. "My loyalty is to my father," I said, "who won for 30 years to leave me something and was specific about not wanting it taken. I'm honoring that." I picked up my bag. I picked up the documents. Both of them, including the one with the forged signature, which was going directly to Sylvia. The referral to the Financial Crimes Unit was filed 3 days ago, I said. I'm not the one who will be contacting you next. I walked out of my childhood home for the last time that felt like home. The drive back to Portland was very quiet. I had the radio off. The rain had stopped and the highway was slick and bright under the streetlights, and I remember thinking that I had expected to feel something bigger. Relief, maybe, or sadness, or the particular vindication of having been right. What I felt instead was something quieter and harder to name, like setting down a weight you've carried so long you'd stopped noticing how much it bent your posture. The investigation moved quickly, mostly because I had handed them a documented case with a timeline, a paper trail, and a recording. Daniel was formally charged 11 weeks after that dinner. Wire fraud and forgery at the federal level, bank fraud in connection with a predatory loan. Melissa filed for divorce 2 weeks after the charges were announced. I heard that from my mother, who called me for the first time since that night and was careful and formal in the way of someone trying to navigate a conversation they don't know how to have. My mother did not lose the house. My father's estate had provisions for it that Daniel had not touched, possibly because he hadn't found them yet, or possibly because even he had a line. I choose to believe the latter because it makes the grief easier. Gerald Whitmore confirmed that he had never drafted the co-management document Daniel brought to dinner. Daniel had used a legal template and put Gerald's name on it. Gerald was, understandably, furious. He has been cooperative with investigators. The private lender filed a separate civil suit which is still working through the courts. That is not my problem to solve. The trust is intact. All $2.4 million, exactly where my father put it. I went to see the grave a month after the charges were filed. It was a cold morning and the cemetery was nearly empty, and I stood there for a long time, not saying anything in particular, just being there. I thought about the 3 sentences he left me. I thought about how he had watched, quietly, for decades, watched me pay my own way and ask for nothing and keep going, and had decided, quietly, to make sure I had something solid to stand on. I think about something one of my colleagues said when I told her what had happened. She's been in financial crimes investigation for 15 years, and she's seen most things. And she looked at me and said, "People think financial abuse in families is about money. It's not. It's about making you feel like you don't deserve to hold on to anything that's yours." I've thought about that a lot. The apartment I have now has a second bedroom that I use as an office, and on the desk there is a framed copy of my father's note. Not the original. The original is in a fireproof box, but a typed copy in a plain frame. 3 sentences. I look at it when a case gets hard, or when I'm tired, or when I'm sitting with the specific silence of a life that is genuinely mine. You never asked me for anything, Nora. That's exactly why I wanted to make sure you had something. Don't let anyone take it from you. I didn't.